Today, I'd like to talk about the benefits of fermented mugwort and its potential impact on Africa's livestock industry. To begin with, I'll focus on the egg production sector, which is a particularly important part of livestock farming in Africa. Let's take a look at the current state of egg production across the continent. Africa's egg industry can be divided into two categories: large-scale commercial egg farms and local village eggs raised in rural areas. In many African countries, small-scale, family-run farms raising local breeds remain the mainstream production model. In fact, in numerous countries, these local breeds make up about 90% of the total poultry population. However, while local breeds account for about 90% of the number of chickens raised, commercial egg farms contribute nearly 40% of total egg production, according to available data. This chart is based on the data released by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations (FAO) in July 2024 on the global population of laying hens. Here, we've extracted the top 10 African countries from that list. Nigeria stands out as the clear leader, followed by Egypt and Angola. However, what I'd like you to focus on is not just the number of chickens, but the ratio between commercial egg farms and rural small-scale farms, as well as how that affects egg production. Since these are the top 10 egg-producing countries in Africa, it's no surprise that their share of commercial egg farms is generally much higher than the continental average. Among them, the countries highlighted in yellow, such as Egypt, South Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, have commercial egg farm ratios exceeding 90%, showing significant progress toward modernizing their egg production industry. On the other hand, countries highlighted in blue, like Nigeria, Angola, and Tanzania, still have a high proportion of smaller rural egg farms. In fact, in Tanzania, the ratio of commercial farms to local rural production is almost the same as the African average of 1:9, meaning the majority of eggs still come from local breeds raised in rural areas. This chart shows the average number of eggs laid per hen per year, comparing commercial farms with local rural farms in each country. As you can see, across all countries, commercial farms consistently achieve around 250 to 300 eggs per hen per year. For reference, in Japan, the average is about 320 eggs, which is among the highest in the world. This means that in terms of egg-laying rates, commercial farms have very little room left for further improvement. Of course, improvements can still be made in areas such as reducing mortality, improving feed efficiency, and enhancing egg quality. Now, let's look at the local breeds. In most countries, the annual egg production per hen is only about 50 to 60 eggs. That's just 1/5 of the level achieved in commercial farms. According to a livestock productivity model developed by CSIRO in Australia, called LiveGap's Livestock Global Assessment of Productivity Systems, with the right combination of supplementary feed and disease control measures, it is possible to raise egg production in local breeds up to 125 eggs per hen per year. Of course, it would be difficult to jump directly from 50 to 125 eggs. However, since local breeds account for about 90% of all poultry in Africa, even a smaller increase in productivity would make a huge difference. For example, if production were raised from 60 to 80 eggs per year, which is a 30% increase, that would already be a very realistic and impactful improvement. To illustrate this potential, let's take Tanzania as an example, since its ratios are very close to the overall African average, and examine how much egg distribution could increase. Tanzania has 33.68 million laying hens in total. Around 10% of these are in commercial farms, that's about 3.36 million hens. With an annual production rate of 270 eggs per hen, commercial farms produce roughly 900 million eggs per year. Meanwhile, the rural local breeds make up the remaining 90%, or about 30.3 million hens. With an average of 57 eggs per hen per year, this adds up to about 1.73 billion eggs. Together, Tanzania's total annual egg production is around 2.64 billion eggs. That means, on average, each Tanzanian consumes about 38 eggs per year. Now, let's see what happens if the local hen's productivity is raised to 80 eggs per year. Commercial farm production remains the same, at about 900 million eggs. But local production increases to 2.42 billion eggs. That brings the total to 3.33 billion eggs, which is a 26% increase in national egg supply. As a result, the average egg consumption per person would rise from 38 to almost 49 eggs per year. To put this into perspective, the world average is about 170 eggs per person annually, and in Japan it is more than 300. Even at 49, Tanzania would still be below global levels, but an increase of more than 10 eggs per person is still a remarkable achievement. And this is not just a dream. As I mentioned, in Ghana we have already demonstrated that introducing fermented Mugwort Probiotics to local hens can increase egg production by as much as 35%. This shows that real and impactful improvements are possible. Here are the results from a field test we conducted in Ghana using our product. We compared two groups of 20 local hens over a 30-day trial period. One group received the Mugwort probiotics, and the other did not. Both groups were fed the same diet, so the only difference was the addition of our product. The results were very clear. 1. The hens that received the probiotics showed a 5% increase in body weight. 2. Their feed conversion ratio improved significantly from 3.2 in the control group to 2.5 in the test group, a 0.7-point improvement. 3. Most importantly, there were no deaths in either group during the trial. In terms of observations, we also noted the following. Their feathers regenerated and became healthier. Weak hens recovered strength and vitality. And most importantly, the egg-laying rate increased by an average of 35%. This was only a 30-day trial, so the improvement ended at 35%. But if administration were continued long-term, the potential impact could be far greater. Even Dr. Johnson, the lead researcher for this trial, was astonished by the results. He remarked that this could spark a revolution in Ghana's poultry industry. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly is this fermented Mugwort probiotic that has created such remarkable results? Let me explain. It is a probiotic formulation and herbal medicine made by carefully extracting plant-based lactic acid bacteria from the leaves of mugwort, a native Japanese herb. Along with the bacteria, we also extract a wide range of nutrients found in the mugwort plant, including dietary fiber, beta-carotene, vitamin K, and chlorophyll, through a long, controlled fermentation process. For more than 1,500 years, mugwort has been known in Japan as a medicinal herb with remarkable health benefits. It was considered a kind of universal herbal remedy, especially valued for its strong effects on digestive health, helping with both constipation and diarrhea. Unlike cultivated vegetables that grow under human protection, mugwort survives in harsh natural environments. As a result, its leaves store a rich concentration of nutrients and compounds. This resilience is also why the lactic acid bacteria extracted from mugwort are so robust. They are strong enough to withstand stomach acid and reach the intestines alive. In other words, fermented mugwort lactic acid bacteria is not just any supplement. It is a carefully developed super probiotic formulation, combining naturally resilient plant-based lactic acid bacteria with the medicinal nutrients of mugwort, all enhanced through fermentation. Now, let's take a moment to consider, what do we mean by probiotics? And more importantly, how is this probiotic different from others? In simple terms, probiotics are live microorganisms, good bacteria that help maintain a healthy balance in the gut. Taken in appropriate amounts over time, they have been shown to positively influence overall health. Lactic acid bacteria are categorized not only by species but also by specific strains, and the effects can vary greatly from one strain to another. Our fermented Mugwort probiotics contain two key strains, Lactobacillus rhamnosus YL399 and Lactobacillus plantarum YL198. YL399 is known for its superior gut-regulating effects and infection prevention abilities compared to other lactic acid bacteria. It stimulates digestive enzyme secretion, which helps improve nutrient absorption and relieve constipation. YL198 has a powerful immune-boosting effect, much stronger than that of ordinary bifidobacteria or lactic acid bacteria. Research shows that it can enhance immune function nearly 3 times more than the bacteria commonly found in yogurts and similar products. Together, these two strains, combined with the rich nutrients of mugwort, work synergistically. Fermentation makes these nutrients easier for the body to absorb, resulting in what we call a super probiotic, fermented mugwort probiotics. And of course, its benefits are not limited to egg-laying hens. Next, let's look at what effects it has on broiler chickens. First, when it comes to the broiler industry, there are 4 key priorities. The first is reducing feed costs. But this does not mean switching to cheaper feed. It means improving feed efficiency so that less feed is needed for the same or better growth. The second is lowering mortality rates. If chicks that are purchased and raised die partway through the process, it only results in losses. The third is reducing susceptibility to disease. When birds fall ill, not only are extra veterinary costs required, but growth slows down, and final body weight at shipment is also affected. And the fourth is increasing body weight. Broiler chickens are not sold per bird, but by weight. Therefore, if body weight is low, profitability is directly reduced. With these 4 points in mind, let me share with you the results of trials we conducted in Japan. This is the result of a broiler trial conducted in Japan. On the left, you see the comparison between 2 groups of chicks, each with 1,000 birds, starting at 8 days old. One group received 0.5 milliliters of the fermented mugwort probiotic daily for 30 days, while the control group was raised as usual. The fecal analysis shows a remarkable improvement. The population of good bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, increased by 380%, while harmful bacteria such as E. coli dropped drastically to just 0.67% of the control level. This demonstrates a clear improvement in gut health. On the right, you see the changes in body weight and feed intake. After 37 days, the probiotic group was over 10% heavier than the control. In terms of weight gain, this was an increase of more than 27%. Importantly, feed intake remained almost the same between the 2 groups. This means the birds converted the same amount of feed into more meat and blood, achieving far better feed efficiency. In other words, improved intestinal flora boosted digestion and nutrient absorption, leading to faster growth. From these results, we can confirm 2 major effects: lower feed costs through improved efficiency, and increased body weight for higher profitability. Next, let's look at the results regarding mortality rates. This table shows the effect of adding fermented mugwort probiotic to either feed or drinking water, compared to normal feed, by tracking the number of broiler deaths during the rearing period. Area 1, birds received feed mixed with the probiotic. Area 2, birds received drinking water with the probiotic added. Area 3, the control group received standard feed only. The results are striking. By 54 days of age, the control group had a mortality rate of 8%. In comparison, the feed supplement group dropped to 5%, while the water supplement group dropped even further to just 2%. That means mortality was reduced by 37% with feed supplementation and by an impressive 75% with water supplementation. The key point here is that nothing complicated was done. Simply mixing the probiotic into the drinking water was enough to achieve such dramatic improvements. For reference, the control mortality rate of 8% is about the average seen in Japanese broiler production. Now, the question is, what are the mortality rates like in African broiler farms? Let's take a look. This graph shows broiler mortality rates across several African countries, using data only from nations where reliable figures are available. We can see that Ethiopia's mortality rate stands out as exceptionally high, with reports indicating that about 90% of deaths are caused by Newcastle disease. Other countries fall in the range of 10% to 16% mortality on average. One important note, in Japan, broilers are typically shipped at around 50 days, whereas in African countries, they are shipped earlier, between 35 and 40 days. So, the mortality rates here reflect that earlier shipping period. Now, let's consider what would happen if our probiotics were introduced into broiler production in these countries, using the Japanese trial results as a reference. In Japan, compared to normal rearing, mortality decreased by 37.5% with feed supplementation and by 75% with water supplementation. For this calculation, let's take the midpoint and assume a 50% reduction in mortality. If we apply this assumption, mortality in all countries would be cut in half. But to see the real economic impact, let's take Ethiopia as an example. Ethiopia is one of Africa's leading broiler producers, with an annual output of 61,840 tons. Since each broiler weighs about 1.5 kilograms, this equals around 41.2 million birds. At a market price of $4 to $5 per bird, total sales are about $185 million. If mortality is reduced by 50%, the output rises to 48.6 million birds, increasing total sales to about $219 million. That's an additional $33 million in revenue. From a practical standpoint, the main cause of death, Newcastle disease, is a viral infection spread through contaminated droppings, which dry and then spread via airborne particles. The most effective strategy is a combination of vaccination for resistance, along with probiotics to boost immunity and improve gut health, ensuring that active virus does not remain in the droppings. This dual approach could make a significant contribution to lowering mortality rates. Our product can address all four issues in broiler farming. 1. Lower feed costs. 2. Reduce mortality. 3. Prevent diseases. 4. Increase body weight. The degree of improvement will vary depending on the country, but significant results can certainly be expected. Please note that at our booth today, you can taste test the chicken raised with our fermented Mugwort Probiotics. You may be surprised how delicious the breast meat is. If broiler meat is raised with this probiotic, the same flavor as the chicken we are offering today could also be achieved in Africa. Next, I would like to show you the test results when these probiotics were given to dairy cows. This was a 4-month test feeding to dairy cows, carried out from July to October. The cows were divided into 2 groups of 300 each. A low-yield group producing an average of 17 kilograms of milk per day, and a medium-yield group producing an average of 27 kilograms of milk per day. As a result, the low-yield group increased average milk production by more than 20% compared to the previous year, while the medium-yield group increased by 7%. This shows that the low-yield group has more potential. Since the test was conducted from July to October in Japan, it can be considered data under climate conditions similar to those in Africa. Let's take a look at how much milk is produced by each dairy cow in Africa. This graph shows the average daily milk yield per cow in various African countries. Reliable data was scarce, so only South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya could be extracted. From the graph, it can be seen that in each of these countries, the average milk yield per cow is around 15 kilograms per day, which places them in the low-yield group. If the results from Japan hold true, yields in each of these countries could also increase by 20%. This is the graph of the current annual milk production. South Africa produces 3.77 million tons, Egypt produces 5.72 million tons, and Kenya produces 5.67 million tons of milk each year. If our test results hold true, production in each country would increase by 20%. Here is the simulation result with a 20% increase. What would happen if milk production across Africa rose by 20%? Please take a moment to imagine the possibilities and how much of an impact it would have. To tell you the truth, a lot of other probiotic products are attracting attention in the livestock industry as alternatives to antibiotics, and it is not just our product alone. However, despite such proven effects, these probiotic products have only spread in limited areas. Why is that so? Well, one reason is that, unlike medicine, the effects are not immediate and can be difficult to see. Another reason is that costs are often high. But, rest assured, for we have found a way to solve these two major issues. To allow end users to use our probiotics continuously and affordably, we are recruiting local manufacturing and sales partners to produce and distribute it directly in their region. Our company is willing to supply the starter culture needed to grow the probiotic lactic acid bacteria. And you need only 3 ingredients which can easily be locally sourced: coarse salt, molasses, and well water. By mixing the starter with these ingredients in our specially developed fermentation tanks, the fermentation process is speed up and the end product is available in about 1 week. After that, please deliver it to your customers directly. Ideally, it should be sold on a subscription basis. For example, a farm with 100 laying hens would need about 1.5 liters per month. A farm with 50 dairy cows would need about 45 liters per month. By delivering once a month and collecting back the tanks delivered, tank costs can also be reduced, further lowering overall expenses. By having your customers sign fixed monthly contracts, production can be planned efficiently, which also cuts labor costs. Of course, local production costs will vary depending on raw material prices in the region, but it should be possible to produce at a very affordable rate. Currently, we are looking for manufacturing and sales agents across African countries. If you are interested, please contact one of our staff members. Thank you for listening, and we hope to welcome you at our booth.